two killers, two eras, two unsolved mysteries. Tonight, we travel from the quiet streets of 1940s Pascagoula to the interstate highways of the 1990s Midwest. The Phantom Barber and the I-70 killer, both left behind fear, unanswered questions, and cases that remain unsolved to this day. This is their story. April 8, 1992. Indianapolis, Indiana. A bridal shop stands quiet at dusk. Inside, a young woman is working alone. Minutes later, she is found dead, shot in the back of the head. The killer leaves without stealing a dime. He doesn't say a word. He simply vanishes into the night. That was the first confirmed strike of a man police would come to call. The I-70 killer, the Midwest in the early 90s. Quiet towns, small businesses, and long stretches of interstate highway connecting them all. These were the places where people felt safe, where families shopped for wedding dresses, books, or little gifts. And it was in these ordinary places that terror would strike. The victims were mostly young women, clerks working alone in specialty shops along the busy I-70 corridor. They were daughters, sisters, friends, taken in moments when they thought they were safe. The killings began in Indianapolis, then spread east to Ohio and west to Missouri. In every case, the pattern was chillingly similar. The killer walked into small shops, sometimes in broad daylight. He selected businesses where one woman was working alone. Then, with cold precision, he used a rare .22 caliber firearm with a long barrel to execute his victims with a single shot. There was no robbery, no assault, no personal motive, just the same silent ritual of death, repeated again and again. Ballistics quickly tied the murders together. Investigators realized they were dealing with a serial killer, one who was using the interstate as his hunting ground. Witnesses described a thin man in his late 20s or early 30s, with reddish or sandy-colored hair. Some said he looked like an average salesman, calm, polite, even forgettable, that detectives believed was his greatest weapon. Police swarmed the interstate. They set up roadblocks. They chased leads across 3 states, but every tip led to nothing. The killer always seemed one step ahead, vanishing onto the endless ribbons of highway. Criminal profilers painted a disturbing picture. This was a man who planned with military precision. He didn't kill for money. He didn't kill for sex. He killed, it seemed, for control, for ritual. Why clerks in empty shops? Why along the I-70? Perhaps the highway was his freedom, his escape route. Perhaps he traveled for work, truck driver, salesman, drifter, and the road itself was his cover. For the victims' families, the randomness was the most terrifying part. Their daughters weren't targeted because of who they were, but simply because they were there. Over the years, suspects emerged. Composite sketches were released. In 2022, 30 years after the killings, police announced renewed efforts, even naming a person of interest. But without DNA, without a confession, without a clear break, the case stalled once again. Some investigators believe the killer may be dead. Others fear he could still be out there, blending into society just as easily as he did in 1992. The I-70 killer left behind shattered families, haunted communities, and one of the Midwest's most enduring mysteries. 30 years later, the case remains unsolved. For the people who drive those long stretches of highway, the legend lingers that somewhere out there, a man who killed without reason once walked among them, and perhaps still does. But the darkness of the past has a way of returning. Different time, different place, yet the same haunting question: who was behind it? In the spring of 1992, along America's I-70 corridor, a new phantom began his deadly work. Summer, 1942, Pascagoula, Mississippi. Families awoke to a terrifying discovery. Their homes had been broken into, their children's hair cut off as they slept. No robbery, no assault, just missing locks of hair and the creeping knowledge that a stranger had stood in their bedrooms in the dead of night. They called him the Phantom Barber, and for months, he turned a quiet coastal town into a place of fear. Pascagoula in the 1940s was a close-knit community. a working-class town where families left doors unlocked and children played freely in the streets. But that peace shattered in June of 1942, when the first reports of the Phantom Barber surfaced. The victims were ordinary families, mothers, fathers, children, who all awoke to find the same bizarre signature. Strands of hair scattered on pillows, shorn from their heads while they slept. Parents were horrified. The violation was not just in their homes, it was in their most intimate space. The bedroom. The barber struck again and again. First 2 young girls, then a boy, then a woman. Each time, he crept silently into locked or unlocked homes, cut hair, and vanished without a sound. At first, people laughed it off, a prank, maybe a deranged fetish. But then, he escalated. On one hot night in August, a couple awoke to a brutal assault. The Phantom Barber had entered their home and attacked them in their bed with an iron pipe, leaving them bloodied and terrified. This was no longer a joke. The barber wasn't just a prankster. He was dangerous. The Pascagoula police launched one of the largest manhunts in the town's history. Officers patrolled neighborhoods, set traps, and interviewed suspects. Fear gripped the community. Families nailed windows shut. Fathers sat on porches with shotguns, waiting. Eventually, police arrested a local man named William Dolan, a German-born chemist working at a nearby plant. He had quarreled with the local political elite, and investigators claimed hair was found in his possession. Dolan was convicted and sent to prison, but many believed he was innocent. The evidence was circumstantial, the motive unclear, and the hair samples, questionable at best. Why cut hair? Psychologists speculated it could be a fetish, a way to control or humiliate. Others thought it was ritualistic, a twisted obsession. But the escalation to violence suggested something darker. For Pascagoula's families, the real terror was knowing someone had stood over them in the night, close enough to touch them, close enough to harm their children. And they never woke until it was too late. After Dolan's conviction, the hair-cutting attacks mysteriously stopped. Was he truly the Phantom Barber, or had the real culprit simply disappeared into the shadows? Some residents swore the barber was never caught. Others believed Dolan was framed in a wartime hysteria, a convenient scapegoat when the town demanded answers. More than 80 years later, the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula remains an enigma. Was he a fetishist, a stalker, or just a figment of wartime paranoia? What is certain is this. For one long, terrifying summer, an entire town lay awake in fear, waiting for the whisper of scissors in the dark.